author, ALS advocate, film producer, and talk show host. I'm here to motivate, educate, and entertain. Join me on YouTube every Wednesday at 7 p.m. Stacey Thomas Talk Show, where we have powerful discussions centered around health, relationship, careers, and everyday conversation. Follow me on Facebook, I am Stacey Thomas, on Instagram, Stacey Thomas Talk Show. And don't forget, I can promote you too. Email me at iamstaceythomas@gmail.com. Now, it's time for the show. Hello. Welcome to the I Am Stacey Thomas Talk Show. And I'm your host, Stacey Thomas. And once again, I have with me an awesome guest, a very important guest. She was on my platform a couple of years ago. And as I follow her on social media, I see that she is continuing to grow, continuing to reach more people, and continuing to bring up the most important topics that entrepreneurs, CEOs, and company product owners, people that are running businesses, she's giving information that you need to know. I'd like to welcome my guest. Hello.
Hi, Miss Stacey. How you doing?
I'm fine, beautiful. How are you?
All is well. No real complaints.
Let me tell you, loving the glasses with the top. You are a true diva. And I would like to tell you thank you because you know what? I was blessed to have you on my platform a year or two ago. I have your video pinned up on my YouTube page because it is very informative. And to be blessed by your appearance again on my show, I would like to say thank you.
Thank you for having me. You know, anytime I get a chance to share some legal information, legal diva tidbits, then I'm always here because we don't always talk about what's needed. And the worst thing to me for someone to learn law is when they're in the middle of a lawsuit.
Right. So, and to Miss Toni, to start off, please tell us a little bit about yourself and what exactly is it that you specialize in?
So, hey everybody, I'm a business lawyer that handles a lot of trademarking, brand protection. I do a lot with some of my clients who are entertainers and they're also business owners. So I help them with their compliance plan. And then in 3 states, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and New York, I literally help them with their succession planning, setting up a trust in a state and helping them with regards to a succession plan for their company. So, you know, if there was a such thing, I would be like the 360 business lawyer, you know, literally from startup to succession planning. That's what I pretty much do. And anytime people hear me talk about boss up, it's literally taking ownership of the fact that now you are the boss. Like, you know, so you got to take ownership of your business, got to take ownership of your brand. You got to pretty much set up a business that is worthy, you know, of generational wealth. And then you also always got to have a succession plan. So anytime I'm saying the boss up, if you ever see me, I'm like, in the UP is using the power within you. So a lot of us have not been taught that we are the bosses. We've been taught to sit down, shut up, be quiet, and become a widget counter, as opposed to taking ownership of the fact that if we are, you know, feel like we're assigned to wealth. Like for me, I come from broke, but I feel like I'm assigned to wealth. I feel like I am the family member who is going to be the rich and wealthy auntie that's going to set up a trust, not just for my children and children's children, but to break the generational curse of my family.
Wow. I was wondering what the boss up was.
Yes.
I was really wondering. I'm thankful that you explained that. To start off, I'd like to ask you, when someone comes up with an idea, when someone says, I'm going to do a talk show, I'm going to write a book, I'm going to open a business, what is the very first thing when they come up with the name and idea that they should do?
One of the things with regards to it, because I talk a lot with regards to brand protection, is to appreciate that, one, a business name does not have to be a brand name. It can be, but it doesn't have to be. So a business name could be Stacey.
Okay.
A brand name can be Stacey on the mic. Stacey making plays, Stacey making moves, you know, because it sounds like you make a lot of moves. So your brand could be Stacey making moves. But if you come up with a brand name with Stacey making moves, then you would go to the uspto.gov to make sure that there's not another Stacy making moves. Because if there is, then you're going to get a cease and desist, which is problematic when you're birthing out a brand. The worst thing in the world to birth out a brand and it becomes SID, sudden infant death, because you get a cease and desist. So you started it, you birthed it out, and now you can't even let it live because you pretty much took ownership of someone else's brand. I was about to have a full Jesus conversation with regards to the women. One, they both gave babies at the same time, but one had already given it, but that's a whole different story. But when you understand and appreciate that you're birthing out a brand and you want to name it and claim it and you want to get known for it, then you go to the ESQ.gov and you make sure that you can take ownership of it. The birthing out of a national brand, you do want to get a trademark protection. That's at the federal level. Some people are like, I don't care. I'm not really trying to be that big. But if your kingdom, such as myself, the earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof. So you need to serve at the national level as much as possible. So depending on where you are, that's what you do.
So I'm not just going to get a regular trademark. I need to look at national.
Well, that's what a trademark is. Like, first of all, most people get this confused. A trademark literally is a mark of your trade.
Okay.
Like Stacy on the Move, we just came up with a brand. A brand is a trademark. Now, whether or not it gets federal protection by the United States government is now because you took it through another process. You didn't just name it and claim it. You registered it too.
Okay.
So, and you register it with United States Patent and Trademark Office. So anybody who's listening, ear hustling, as I say, come ear hustle with me. You go there at uspto.gov. You do a trademark search because now you appreciate that the name of your brand is the mark of your trade. That's what you're trading in business. You know what I mean? Instead of Stacy, you are Stacy on the Move brand. And there's 45 different ways for you to show up and serve with the Stacy on the Move brand. You could be a podcaster. You can be, a software engineer. You can be a Stacy on the Move, God girl preaching the word of God, and you put it under, a church, or you can have Stacy on the Move with regards to a nonprofit agency, or Stacy on the Move with regards to publishing, or Stacy on the Move journals. But literally whatever you name and claim, that came personal to you, and you feel as though you're giving birth to something. So if you're giving birth to a brand, you're going to have a name for it. I gave birth to 2 children. I got a name for it. But if you want to make sure that it's protected, you also get a brand certificate, almost like a birth certificate, letting people know that it came from you.
So when someone comes up with an idea, or they come up with, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. First of all, before you take ownership of a name, we need to Google it. Is that what you're saying?
I said go to trademark, uspto.gov.
Right.
You know what I mean? Now, Googling works too, because for all the cheap folks, because every once in a while somebody be like, well, what's a common law brand? Common law brand is, that's still a brand because it's still a name. Most people have to get out of their head as to the legalities and say, well, I get confused. No, you don't. It's still a name. A brand is a name, and a trademark is the name that you use in your business. So it's a business name. A brand name is a trademark. Now, and it's common law trademark because you created it. You named your hairline Stacy on the Move. That's a trademark. But whether or not it is actually protected by the United States government, where people look it up and you can send a cease and desist, or you can snatch assets, or you can go to their domain, a host, and say, shut this down because it's violating. Or if you're selling goods and services and your trademark is now the name of your online business, you can shut all of that down. You can only do that once you have a trademark certificate. Wow. Other than that, you just doing a poor man's copyright, but it's not a copyright. Now it's a poor man's TM. TM is like trying to mark like you're trying to man. If you don't put a ring on it, you can't restrict other people from using it.
Wow. That's something, because, when I first started writing, and people say, did you copyright it? Did you copyright it? And I'm at I was at a point where I didn't know what copywriting was. I had an idea, right?
Yeah.
Then you have these people, these friends, or these cheap people always want to say to you, "Oh, just put it in the mailbox and mail it back to yourself and don't open the envelope."
Yeah. That worked. It doesn't work as of 2019, just so you know. So if any,
Wow.
first of all, like I want you to understand, our people did not know. Okay.
Right.
People didn't know. We were treated like impoverished slaves.
Right.
We was deemed as property. Nobody was thinking of us as bosses. Nobody was training us up in the way that we should go. We not that anymore. Some people are still got the spirit of talent or the spirit of artist. And when you're talent or you're an artist, you get paid for your sweat equity, but you don't get any equity. It's almost like DEIA plus, where I'm just like, okay, there's equity, but nobody's talking about money. No one's talking about back end deals, you know?
Right.
So that becomes problematic with regards to it. So I need you to understand and appreciate. And I always say this, C is for creative works. When you take your brilliance and you create a program or you create a book or you create a play, you created works, that's a copyright. As of 2019, if you do not register it, you asset out. Oh, well, somebody gonna copy your ishnets, but you can't go to federal court to get them to shut down. You can't get treble damages. You can't get all of the statutory benefits because you did not comply with the rules that says that if you want to be protected, you're not being like the broke asset people. You're actually doing it like a boss, taking ownership, registering your ownership with the copyright.gov. And sometimes people really get confused because they're like, well, I trademarked it. Okay, but you trademark a name because it's the name in your trade of your services. You know, it's the name of your business. It's the name of your brand. It's the name of your platform. It's the name of your Stacy on the Move, right?
Right.
But when you doing interviews, when you doing shows, when you doing plays, then you're not really necessarily protecting the name of that unless you are. You protect the name, that's a trademark. You're protecting the creative works, that's a copyright.
Oh, wow. I bet, for people that are watching, it's a lot of things that we don't know.
Mhm.
And a lot of things we want to hear what everyone else is saying, and everyone else isn't a lawyer. That's the thing. And we're being misinformed because it was never explained to me this way. Stacy has a lot of work to do, I see. When people follow you and you advertise the boss up, and they would like entrepreneurs or even people that have been in business a while, they want to like get your assistance. So I know you have certain jurisdictions, you said, for certain things, but something like trademarks, is that something anyone in the United States can contact you for assistance with?
Yes, anyone can, because that's federal. And even with the boss up, that is a program. I know
Okay.
very easily how not to be a lawyer because I figured there's a lot of people who giving business advice and business coaching who don't deserve to be in business. They
Right,
pretty
right,
much
right.
opened it up. They don't know anything about business formation. They don't know anything about operations. They don't know anything about compliance. They may have done a sales and marketing of one program and now all of a sudden they somebody's business, but they
Right.
don't even bring someone in. Because my thing is, if you a business coach for real, and you're not an accountant, you're not a lawyer, you're not a marketer, you're not a salesperson, you're not a real estate broker, and you're helping people in that area, then you should bring the people to the table who can give them the subject matter expertise.
Right.
Otherwise, all you doing is creating your own way of getting your other people's lunch money.
So if we're out here, we're doing business,
Mhm.
um we don't get a trademark, we don't get everything copywritten, and something happens to the person that did all of this. How can you leave that to someone if you don't own it, right?
Yeah, you can never, you're going to leave people liability more than legacy. Because I always remind folks, legacy is a legacy is just a story without assets or money, without registrations, without ownership of something. They'd be like, oh, my family member, they were good cooks. Or, there's someone, he passed away, and there was like, Oh my God, his legacy is that he was a hype man. What you get as a hype man? You get some coins, but there's no assets. Ideal, you know what I mean? So when you are building, I always say you're building your own generational wealth. I actually call it the self-wealth model, because when you understand God has given you the power to attain wealth, and it's just a matter of you bankrolling the brilliant ideas and the brilliance, the creativity. And when you're bankrolling the things that you know and turning what you know into cash flow, then you take ownership of that. Then you have a plan. A lot of people don't have a plan. So if there is rules of the game of wealth building, one of them is to appreciate that you need a business. I don't know too many people who are building wealth as an employee with their social security number, because Uncle Sam is already going to take 50% off the grip.
Wow.
And your business owner, they already have an employee contract that says whatever you create is theirs anyway. That's master servant.
Right, right.
They treat you like talent. They treat you like athletes. You know, they won't even give you a certain percentage. You know, they will take all of your stuff. There's one girl, she was like, her job takes everything that they put on their computer. Well, don't be putting your intellectual property on the computer.
Well, I'll give you something that I recently found out. At some schools, students that create projects at some universities, they don't own what they create.
But I
So
wouldn't understand how that is.
I've
Only
been
because they're not. I can see professors, you know, because you have a professor, whether you're associate or tenured, pretty much there is a agreement, employee contract, that pretty much says whatever you create is owned by the employer. That's how you get your safety net. In exchange for your brilliance, they will give you your 401k, or they'll give you your 403b, or they may even give you something, an acknowledgement. Thank you so much for joining us, type of thing. But with regards to students, even students, anybody who's taking that, they got to just think about how student athletes now take ownership of their name, image, and likeness. So why wouldn't brilliant students be able to take ownership of their brilliance? You know? But if people don't know, or they pitch it and they put it into the atmosphere, but it's not reinforced with a copyright agreement, you know, or an assignment, or something that says whatever I own is mine. Because most people, we are destroyed and we're impoverished. I want to say we're impoverished because of our lack of knowledge.
I agree.
Yeah. Because people will take it. They be like, oh, you need a loan? Okay. I'm going to give it to you at 35%.
Right.
You pay $10,000 back in 5 years, you owe me 20.
Right.
But if you need it and you're desperate, people will take advantage. You're not very demure. When you're very demure, people treat you like you're very dumb. So my Bible tells me I have to be wise as a serpent and sweet as a dove, not demure. Smart.
Smart. So why would I come to you? I'm a new business owner. I'm out here I'm grinding. And if someone said go to Toni Moore, why would I come to you?
Well, I don't know, because I don't deal with anybody. I don't convince anybody to come to me.
Right.
Period. I only work with bosses.
Right.
So if you're just trying to hustle, I'm not going to convince you. If you are just trying to get enough money for your next paycheck, I'm not. Right. If you just trying to make $1 out of 15 cents, I'm not. But when you have an idea and you understand and appreciate that you have your brilliance is bankable asset that can change the trajectory of your legacy, that whatever your hand gets to, that's good work. When you understand and appreciate that idea, that's not protected, but intellectual property is. When you understand and appreciate that when you was at the corporate space, you was already the smartest person, and you don't want to always give up for pennies on the dollar, then you start saying, I'm gonna build a business. And you want that LLC not just to be something that is give you do re mi, but you want long lasting currency, and you want to protect yourself. Then guess what? You're going to come to that 360 business lawyer, because I'm not just going to help you set up your business. We're going to help you set up your operations. We're not just going to help you set up your operations. We're going to help you secure your intellectual property. You're not just going to secure your intellectual property, but you're going to be able to stack your paper because you now know that that intellectual property is something that is tangible. That tangibility is so much so that now that what God has given you is going to be the seed so that you can change the trajectory of your financial destiny. That seed that you create is going to fund your retirement plan, because as a business owner, the law will allow you to deduct this money, so now they're not pimping you. The system ain't pimping you like they pimp employees. Now you can put up to a certain amount, almost $56,000 into a retirement plan. Not only that, but you might want to have overflow. Most of my clients who are millionaires, they just realize that God has given them the power to attain wealth by bankrolling their knowledge. They bankroll their knowledge into a program. They bankroll their knowledge into scripts. One of my client girlfriends, she made over like $500,000 just writing scripts. You know what I mean? So before I got into entrepreneurship, I thought I had to go to school, get good grades, and be pimped by the boardroom. But when I understand and appreciate that this thing called entrepreneurship allows me to escape, this thing called entrepreneurship gives me my financial freedom, this thing called entrepreneurship allows me to create a vessel that can't nobody do, this thing called entrepreneurship is better than a sugar daddy.
Who? I know that's right.
We don't got to do strange things for loose change, okay? We understand and appreciate that. Guess what? Our voice, our invoice. So we don't have to convince anybody. When you start understanding and appreciate that, yes, we have been called to serve, but we're assigned to a certain audience who hears the voice. So I don't convince nobody. I'm not competing with LegalZoom. I don't even compete with the other attorneys that's on the website. Because at the end of the day, I tell God, guess what? Hey, you gave me an assignment. You gave me some assets.
I love it. I love it. So one of the ladies that was on my show a few weeks ago, she has a nonprofit out in Iowa.
Yeah.
She has purchased a hotel to turn into a center for domestic violent women. She wants to know, first she said she needs you. Yes. And now she wants to know, can she secure a non-for-profit?
It's a nonprofit. And I actually work with urban awareness, and I do work with my nonprofit clients with regards to it. What I tell my folks, especially we did the Boss Up Accelerator and we focus on the nonprofit the first cycle, is that always remember in the nonprofit, there's no legacy in nonprofit. They can be like, thank you so much, but you created a nonprofit. So at the end of the day, you're not taking ownership of whatever you are getting. So assets that are gone to the nonprofit, if you pass away, it does not go to your family member. It's owned by the nonprofit. And even in the supplement articles of incorporation, it says, as per nonprofit law, that if you ever terminate your nonprofit, whatever assets were accumulated now has to be donated to another nonprofit. It's good, it's easy peasy if you have nonprofit after nonprofit, or you set up something with regards to like a fund, you know what I mean, that's always funding it. But you got to be mindful that when we're mastering the rules of the game, there's the rule of the game for nonprofit, there's the rules of the game for LLC, there's the rules of the game for estate planning and trust. So on the nonprofit side, yes, we can secure a nonprofit, but just know any assets for the nonprofit is owned by the nonprofit.
That's very interesting. I'm sorry, Monique. It is Missouri. Why did I say Iowa? I'm sorry. When I eventually, I'm going to do the nonprofit in honor of my mother. And then I will tell you is exactly what you just said. So that one thing I did Google, Miss Moore.
Okay.
Mrs. Moore. I said, you know what? I don't know. I'm going to have to wait until I can talk to an attorney, because I saw that a nonprofit. Now, this is something I wanted to make so that family members in the future wanted to fight for the same cause. Hopefully it could be passed to them. And I read, no, a nonprofit will, if something happens to me, it will go to the next nonprofit that is fighting for something similar that I'm fighting for.
Ideally, or you have a succession plan. So nonprofits they do merge. I remember in Philadelphia, there was a woman that was assisting with nonprofits merging,
Mm-hmm.
there are some nonprofits, Monique, you would have to find out, because some nonprofits allow you to have a solo member, meaning that now is one member that is taking ownership, that making all the picking of the board members, determining what the projects are and things of that nature. It's a sole member. It's a bylaw that's saying it's managed by a sole member. It's still run by a board of directors, but the board of directors get picked by the sole member. And if you have something like a sole member, you definitely need to, because it's almost like having your own family foundation, but it's cloaked under a nonprofit. There's a lot of states that don't allow it. Pennsylvania allows it, New Jersey doesn't. And you can always pick a state that does allow it and then set up a foreign business entity. I'm just saying, you know
This
what I mean? But even if that happens, you have to always have a succession plan, because without a succession plan, then it can end up in litigation, or because a lot of people, they forget about having a succession plan for their business, and they forget about having a succession plan for their church, and they forget about having a succession plan for their nonprofit, because we have not been taught to be bosses. We have been taught to be widgets, to
Wow.
replace our parents. But when you take ownership and you change the trajectory of who you be, and you're now a creator, you have been created by the creator to create. So you have to be mindful. But just know that if the assets of the nonprofit pays for something, then the nonprofit owns it. Just have a succession plan in place with regards to if something should happen to you, what happens to the property. Because by law, it should be passed on to another nonprofit. Yes.
Wow. This
Mhm.
is why you need an attorney, right?
Yes.
I think it's okay to Google, but I am going to be honest with you. I am a person that I need to speak to a person, a professional, because I could look up one thing on Google and I got three different things popping up telling me three different companies telling me three different things.
Right. Well, I mean, most of the time, attorneys say it depends. Someone asked me something today with regards to estate planning and probate. And they're like, hey, can we just transfer the property from my grandmom to the next person as per her will? I said, it really depends, because grandmom is old. So we're still looking at a 5-year look back just in case she ever needs Medicaid. And
Right.
then attorney's going to say it depends, because I don't know who the other person is that y'all trying to convince her to transfer their 50%. Because if they're a liar and deceiver, or they get caught up with a lawsuit or divorce, then a lawyer says outright yes. But now I put grandmom in a worse situation because all you heard was yes, as opposed to it depends.
Wow. Mrs. Moore,
Yes.
have have you ever had a client that built something and had done none of what you she she never met a Toni Moore? He or she built something making money, and at the end of the day they find out all hell breaks loose, excuse my language, because they don't have a trademark or copyright, right?
I mean, it's sad when people are entangled. So that financial entanglement with the business entanglement, people call me because they were in business with their friends, or who became their frenemies, or their loved ones, or somebody who they were engaged to, and the engagement is off. Now they're like, the other person is very emotional. I met some people, they have real estate company, have millions of dollars assets under management together. They were not married, but they had planned on getting married, and then it was a problem. You know what I mean? So I always say that you have to be mindful. I look at business as a game. I'm about 6 feet tall. I'm a former basketball player, and I know back in the day when I played basketball, I could not play basketball like football. Okay. And I could not try to hit a basketball like baseball. Like, there's rules of a game. So in rules of the game, you got to appreciate that at the end of the day, you got to know who's on your team. And some people is just playing get you gotcha. Some people is playing is me fi me. Some people is playing I'm a pimp you to the end. And some people really want to be on board. But you have to have the spirit of discernment before you say yes. Because just like marriage, some people, they do need what I call business prophylactics, aka business nuptials. saying, hey, let's talk about this operating agreement. If something happened, or you get sick, or you die, or you file for bankruptcy, or you get a divorce, because one of my big time clients, somebody had gotten a divorce and it was a group of them. And now when the other person died, they didn't have a succession plan in place. So the very person that the member divorced now becomes a member of the group by way of the minor child.
Oh, wow.
That's some stuff. But most people are not thinking like that. They're thinking like, oh, we're just going to do that. Right. And then some people are like, okay, well, I'm going to get me a trust, and the trust is going to hold my assets. And then I'm going to do, and I'm like, that's not, trust is set up for a succession planning. It's called trust and estates for a reason. That way, if there is proper succession planning without having to go to probate. You hear, like, for instance, Michael Jackson, his estate is still in probate 14 years later.
What?
Because money.
Did it take so long?
Because it was money, and they got exactly what they wanted. They wanted that freaking catalog.
So even if there was a will,
but there were still issues. And when there's still issues, then it could take long. Now in Pennsylvania, if it takes more than 2 years, my clients can petition for an accounting, like what the hell is going on? Why are you taking so long? Is it reasonable fees? Do you get removed? Same thing in New York and stuff like that. But sometimes when you got a lot of money, because he did what he needed to do, but you also got to watch who you bring to the table as your fiduciaries. Because sometimes people ain't about the business. They about them assets. And if you don't have a certain time limit, you know what I mean? They will pretty much feed your estate to death.
Wow. Mrs. Moore, tell us again about Boss Up.
Yes. So Boss Up, I don't talk about this a lot, but I have almost 20 years of corporate compliance background.
Okay.
So I always see things from a high level, and I see things prophetically as well. But from a high level, it's like, okay, if you ever take your business to the next level and there's an assessment, or if you're ever looking for funding, from maybe a holding company, or maybe a hedge fund company, or maybe an angel investor, or maybe a VC, right? Venture capitalist or something like that. They're going to be looking for your company to have certain things, business structure. They're going to be looking for what you own with regards to copyright, or own with regards to trademark, or own with regards to patent, because it's a valuation of your equity, right? And then I always say my SOP is systems of protection. So what system of protection do you have? Do you have contracts? Do you have ways that you set boundaries? If you have employees, do you have 941s? If you have independent contractors, do you keep a case management of your contracts? You know what I mean? And then we always think about succession planning. When the succession planning means that you got to end up thinking about above and beyond your next paycheck. You know what I mean? Even with regards to setting up a business, not just as an LLC, but as an LLC taxed as a C corp. Now you can retain some income, or an LLC taxed as an S corp. Now you can skip the double taxation, but you got to be strategic. I look at business as a game, chessboard. Okay. We don't talk a lot about the chessboard moves, but as women, we are the queens. And as African-American women, we're the black queens. And do you know that the black side on the chessboard always go last, but you can still win?
Wow.
So we just have to be strategic with regards to it. We've already been smart. We're already brilliant. We're already creating businesses. We are already saying no to the stronghold of poverty, but we still got to be strategic. And for some of us, that means to shift who we be because at one point I was pitiful. At one point, I was a doormat. At one point, I was broke. But until I realized that I was chasing after who I didn't want to be. Once I realized that my life didn't have to be who I didn't want to be, because when you think about those things as what you want, that's what you manifest. So I started saying, I need to not just break generational curses of poverty, but I want to be the rich auntie in my family so I can have enough money to bless my children, my children's children, my nieces and nephew, my church, you know what I mean, to bless other women so they don't have to do strange things to get loose change, so that they don't have to get stuck in a marriage like one of my sisters who ended up dying from domestic violence, or stuck with a blah blah blah. My husband says that I don't know how to censor myself, but I just did. Okay.
I'm working on it. I'm working on it.
I'm learning. Okay. I am a deacon's wife. So, I always got to be mindful of my tongue.
Okay.
Yes. But when we totally understand that we're not man's mess, but we're God's masterpiece. So what do we do during our lifetime? So it's not messy, but it's mastery.
Right. So to learn more from you.
Yes.
Well, if they have questions, they can DM you. There was a time I said, "What is DM?" But
right.
Now I get it.
Right.
They can direct message you at the Legal Diva.
Yes.
They can follow you on Facebook.
Yes.
Okay.
I do a lot of talking on Facebook. I'm also on Instagram, and I do have a business coach that's making me build up my tickety talk. I'm just saying,
okay.
You know what I mean? So I give like a lot of diva girl information to the divas, and divas just mean women, you know what I mean? And men too. But I remind men, most men get very comfortable in the status quo.
Right.
Women are like Eve. We are always trying to move and shake and be better versions of ourselves. So that's who I serve. Okay. That's what I'm saying.
I ain't mad at you. Mrs. Moore, it's been nice.
Thank you, Miss Stacey.
No, it's been great.
It's been real.
Yes, it's been real and it's been great. And you know what? This platform is always open to you. It is. I love the information. I love how you're blessing others with information. And I do hope that someone will see this video and they will know, hey, let me stop Googling or listening to my girlfriend and let me contact Toni Moore.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you once again.
You're welcome.
And once again, everyone, if you would like to connect with her, DM her at The Legal Diva, and you can follow her on social media. Have a great night, and thank you again, Mrs. Moore.
All righty. Bye for now.
Bye. Thank you for joining us. This is the Stacey Thomas Talk Show, and I am Stacey Thomas. For more information about Toni Moore, please follow her on social media. Contact her with your questions at The Legal Diva, only if you're serious. Only if you're serious. I like how she explained to you, she will not try to convince you that you need her, right? You've got to accept one thing. Are you a boss or are you not a boss? If you're a boss, do you need to contact her? Hit her up on social media, or once again, DM her at The Legal Diva. And as I always say, don't stress too much about yesterday. Don't worry too much about tomorrow, because if you do, you just might miss living today and miss being a boss, y'all. I just threw that in. Good night.